The following video was made possible by the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum in Washington, PA. To see and ride behind some of the cars featured in this program, please visit www.patrolley.org.
The ride is super finer on the Liberty liner of the Red Arrow line. You've got no traffic worry and you get there in a hurry on the Red Arrow line. Ardmore, Rosemont,
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the city of brotherly love, home to over 5.8 million people. The city became infamous as the location of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776. Since the closing years of the 19th century, however, the city's population was rising and radiating out from Center City. Thus, numerous trolley lines, both high-speed and local, as well as heavy and regional rail services, answered this call. Today, we'll be taking a look at the history of three of those suburban lines, the merger that brought them together, and the legacy it left. This is the story of the history and legacy of the Red Arrow lines.
nothing could be finer on the Red Arrow line.
The Philadelphia and Westchester Traction Company was the first of Philly's network of trolleys and interurbans, formed in 1895 and beginning service the next year. Like normal trolleys and streetcars, interurbans ran down the middle of the street in congested downtowns, but mostly they ran on dedicated tracks and ran faster than normal trolleys as they covered longer distances between stops. The Westchester line ran along what is now the Westchester Pike, along a dedicated right-of-way to its namesake town. In 1902, the P&WC opened a second line, branching off the existing trackage at Lanerish to Ardmore. At Ardmore, connections could be made with the Pennsylvania Railroad to points north or south. In addition to passenger services, the P&WC also ran freight trains using their box motors, which were more or less self-powered boxcars. Aside from general goods, the number one commodity on the line was milk, as most of the suburban towns at the turn of the 20th century were dairy farms. Freight service was suspended after World War II when trucking became more efficient. The box motors were either converted for maintenance services or scrapped. The second interurban trolley line, originally named the Philadelphia and Garretford Street Railway, was formed in 1904 as a way to connect new real estate in the southern suburbs with the newly opened Market Street Elevated Subway, which ran into downtown Philadelphia. The P&G had numerous transfer points, including with the Pennsylvania at Clifton, Alden, and Media, and with the Baltimore and Ohio in Sharon Hill. The Philadelphia and Garretford, which from 1906 onwards became a subsidiary of the Philadelphia and Westchester, as well as the Market Street subway, all met and terminated at 69th Street, where a large terminal station, train yard, and repair shop for all three lines was constructed. The terminal was opened in 1907. The Philadelphia and Western Railroad was formed in 1906 as a high-speed line to connect communities in the Northwest with the Philadelphia and Westchester in Ardmore and with the Market Street subway at 69th Street Terminal. The line reached its namesake town in 1913 via a branch line with a bridge spanning the Schuylkill River. Like the other interurban systems, all P&W trains ran off 600 volts direct current or DC. Unlike the other systems though, the P&W collected its electricity via a third rail and shoe contact, rather than overhead wire and trolley poles. This allowed the P&W to run trains in excess of 70 miles an hour daily. In 1936, the Philadelphia and Garretford and Philadelphia and Westchester, as well as several bus routes, merged together to form the Philadelphia Suburban Transportation Company, or PSTC. Due to the car's maroon-red paint, The system was called the Red Arrow Lines, and the name stuck. The railroad would see very little changes for the next 2 decades, except for car types and paint schemes. The oldest cars on the Red Arrow were numbers 40 through 44, built in 1914. They were nicknamed Jewetts because they were built by the Jewett Car Company of Jewett, Ohio. They were the first all-steel cars on the Red Arrow, borrowing their design from an earlier wooden model. The next series of cars were numbers 45 through 76, called the center door type, from the local Philadelphia manufacturer J.G. Brill Company from 1919 to 1926. These were the largest and heaviest passenger cars in the fleet and also had the highest seating capacity, hence why many crews called them crowd swallowers. They could seat at least 62 people, with many more standees, thanks to a new type of bench called the Admore seat. The center doors were the first Red Arrow cars with electrically conductive couplers, meaning that they could run in tandem during rush hour services without the need for an extra operator in the second car. Next up were the master units, numbers 77 through 86, also built by Brill in 1932. In addition to being lighter, faster, and easier to board, they were the first cars on the system to feature one-man operation, a key point where the Red Arrow Lines had to fire many of their conductors during the Great Depression. On older cars, 2 people were required on board. The operator solely ran the car, while a conductor collected tickets, operated the doors, and signaled to the motorman via a bell cord. The master units could do all that and more from a singular seat. During World War II, record passenger numbers were taking a toll on the aging fleet, and it was clear that more cars were needed. Because of wartime restrictions, new cars could not be built. Instead, 3 second-hand streetcars from the Philadelphia Rapid Transit Company were acquired. They were built in 1918 and arrived on the Red Arrow in 1941 as numbers 25 through 27. The first of the new post-war streamlined cars were the Brill Liners, numbers 1 through 11. They were built by Brill in 1945 and were the first cars in the Philadelphia area to use foot controls like an automobile instead of the more conventional hand-controlled cars. The last and newest cars ordered by the Red Arrow were built by the St. Louis Car Company in 1949. They were based off the builder's already successful PCC streetcar, with the Red Arrow having a special variant. This included 2 cabs and poles, high-speed outside-bearing trucks, comfortable reversible seating, 4 doors, and extra lights. In 1953, the Philadelphia and Western Railroad merged into the Red Arrow, thus adding 14 miles of track and 3 new types of passenger cars for its system. The first was the 160 series Stratford-type cars, built by Brill in 1924. These were the standard all-steel heavyweight interurban cars built for the P&W. There were also the 1930-built Brill Bullet cars, named because of their bullet-shaped nose that was designed in a wind tunnel. They were also capable of reaching triple-digit speeds. The last and newest trains were the Liberty Liner high-speed trains. 2 complete sets were originally built in 1941 by the St. Louis Car Company for the Chicago, North Shore, and Milwaukee Railroad, known as the North Shore Line. They were nicknamed Electroliners. When the North Shore Line was abandoned in 1963, both train sets were sold to the Red Arrow and given a new name, Liberty Liners. They were the only interurbans on the Red Arrow to feature a full-fledged dining and bar car. In the years just following World War II, ridership was at its peak, but as automobiles and buses became more popular and highways were constructed for intercity travel, ridership on the Red Arrow decreased so significantly that several branches had to be closed. First was the Westchester Line in 1954, the Stratford Line in 1956, and the Ardmore Line in 1966. By 1970, the system had declared bankruptcy. and was sold off to the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority, better known as SEPTA. SEPTA was formed in 1963 as an act of the Pennsylvania State Legislature, being funded by the City of Philadelphia and the State of Pennsylvania. Under their rule, 3 major changes were made to what was now called the Red Arrow Division. The first was the closing of the Lannerich Repair Shop and Yard in 1971 along the previously abandoned Ardmore line. Second, the 3 lines were rebranded. The Norristown line was now Route 100, the Media line Route 101, and the Sharon Hill line Route 102. Lastly was repainting the fleet of cars, including master units, brill liners, Louis liners, Straffords, and Bullets, into a new orange, blue, and white paint scheme, nicknamed the Gulf Oil livery. But new paint could not hide the age of those cars, though, as most were falling into disrepair, and parts were hard to come by. By 1982, new Kawasaki LRVs were on the horizon, and SEPTA was selling off the Red Arrow fleet to the highest bidder. The Pennsylvania Trolley Museum of Washington, PA, pioneered the preservation movement for these cars, reaching out to all members of the state legislature, county commissioners, and other high-ranking officials. In 1983, PTM received 3 former Red Arrow cars, Brill Liner 5, Louis Liner 14, and Master Unit 78. The acquisitions didn't stop there. They soon got a 4th Red Arrow car, and then a 5th. And now, in 2024, they currently roster 9 Red Arrow cars, with most being restored to their original conditions for the public to ride behind and enjoy. Other museums followed suit. The Connecticut Trolley Museum, Electric City Trolley Museum, and Rock Hill Trolley Museum in Pennsylvania, the Seashore Trolley Museum in Maine, New York Museum of Transportation, and the National Capital Trolley Museum in Maryland all saved various members of the Red Arrow fleet. SEPTA's Kawasaki cars that replaced the original fleet still run the former Red Arrow Division main lines today, nearly 130 years ago, when the Philadelphia and Westchester was formed. Few could have thought how long-lasting and fascinating the history and legacy of the Red Arrow lines was.